What's going on, everyone? My name is Benjamin Nowak and I'm super excited to bring you guys this video right here. We're going to be talking about super cold water bass fishing. Now, why am I excited about this? Well, there's not a ton of information out there on YouTube about really cold water bass fishing. So this should be something relatively unique. And when I say cold water, I'm talking like ice out. So 32, 33 to like 41, 42 degrees. When that water is really cold, early season, how do you go out? What baits do you present to these fish to be effective, cover a lot of water, but still be slow enough where you're gonna be able to trigger bites from those lethargic bass? So this is gonna be a part 2 video to the video I posted yesterday, which is how do you find productive lakes? How do you find good areas on lakes to catch fish? And for recap, for those of you guys that didn't watch it, I talked about fishing wood, grass, and rock. Those are my 3 main patterns this time of year in shallow water. So all these baits are gonna be relating to those patterns, and they'll be the baits that you need to be effective fishing those patterns. So we're going to start out by talking about my smallmouth baits. Now there are a couple of overlap baits, and those will be presented at the end of the smallmouth section and lead into the largemouth. Might catch some guys by surprise. I like to throw a medium diving crankbait. Now this crankbait here dives down to about 12 to 14 feet. It's a Berkley Dredger, and I like a bright chartreuse style color like this. This is a chartreuse with a green back, and the reason I like that is because a lot of times our water is a little bit dirtier this time of year. A lot of that water has been kind of stirred up from all the melt off. There's a lot of like rivers and creeks running into our lakes, so this bright chartreuse and greenback color works really well for smallmouth. It also imitates a perch really well. It just stands out in that little bit dirtier water, catches a lot of fish. This is going to cover that rock area in like that 12 to 14 foot of water. You can also fish it around riprap really well. Crankbaits with bills on them just do really well around riprap and rock. The line I'm throwing is 12 to 14 pound test. Bait number 1 is a medium diving, like a 10 to 15 foot diving crankbait. So bait number 2 is something you saw me do a lot of damage with at the end of last season, and it's a bait I have a lot of confidence in fishing in really cold water, and that is a blade bait. Now this is a white painted blade, and if you guys watch my blade bait video, you know I like a painted blade around dirtier water. I'm going to start out typically with a painted blade, and then if the water ends up being a little bit clearer than I expected, I might go to a silver or gold blade, but a white painted blade just seems to catch them early season. Now this is a 5/8 ounce blade. I'm fishing it on a Lew's Team Lew's Custom Pro spinning rod 7.2. And I like that 7.2 because I can make a long cast, but it's got a moderate fast tip. This is a tube special rod, so it's a little bit softer. Allows me to kind of keep those fish buttoned up, especially when I catch them at the end of a long cast. Then I'm fishing it on 15 pound braid to an 8 pound or 7 pound fluorocarbon leader with 3000 size Lew's Team Custom Pro reel. So bait number 3 is one that I've started developing a ton of confidence in. Actually, since my buddy Mikey Balls came up here and smoked some giant smallmouth on it last spring with me. But it's a little Ned rig. It's a 1/4 ounce Berkley half head with a Z-Man hula grub on there, or hula stick, or whatever it is, and Canada craw. And it just catches a lot of fish. Something about these little tentacles waving around on there catch a lot of giant smallmouth and largemouth. This is one of my crossover baits that I'll talk about here in a little bit. But I'm going to fish this typically pretty slow along the bottom. It's for those little bit more lethargic smallmouth. And I like to fish it around rock. You can fish it around any sort of cover, but it comes through rock the best. That's typically where this is going to shine. And I'm throwing this on a ARC Tharp Series 7 foot medium extra fast rod, and then 15 pound test to 7 pound fluorocarbon line. But this is the deal when you want to fish low and slow along the bottom. On that same rod, however, is bait number 4. Bait number 4 is actually a small swim bait. So when those fish are a little bit more aggressive, they're up in the water column just off the bottom. I'm going to take a Rains Rock Vibe shad and 3 1/4 inch. And this is the Mueller Madness color. It's like a smoke grayish back with a white belly. It's got some purple flake in there, and I'm just going to swim this around really slow. I have it on a 1/4 ounce Buckeye screw lock finesse swim bait head, and I like that head because I can kind of cast it out there. It's a little bit heavier, allows that bait to get down, and I can really creep this bait when those fish are feeding up just a little bit. Again, I'm going to throw it on that same 7 foot medium extra fast rod, and it's just going to be a good way to catch those fish when they're up off the bottom and feeding, as opposed to down there on the bottom. And bait number 5 is a tried and true jerk bait. A jerk bait catches smallmouth all year long, but I like to throw it as a reaction bait early season to get those big smallmouth to come up and eat it. And this is a Megabass Vision 110 Plus one. And I like to throw it around like that shallow cover, that shallower grass, that shallower rock, because it triggers a lot of big bites. This bait dives down to about 7 foot on 10-pound test line, which is what I have it on. So you can fish it relatively deep and trigger a lot of big bites. It's on a 6'9" Arc Tharp Series jerkbait rod. And I'm excited to go out and catch some big fish on a jerkbait. A jerkbait is also one of my go-tos for big largemouth bass. And again, I like to throw it around that shallow cover, that shallow grass, that shallow wood, that shallow rock to trigger some big largemouth. Now I'll probably not go with a plus one. I'll probably go with a standard diving jerkbait. A lot of times those big largemouth are a little bit shallow where I'm fishing around like that 10 foot or less range, and I'll want to go to a little bit shallower diving jerkbait. I'll pull out like a 6 cents Provoke 106, or I'll pull out like a Duo 110, just regular suspending model, and it catches them. But a jerkbait is great for largemouth as well as it is for smallmouth, especially around that shallow grass and cover. Sorry I'm duplicating baits, but going back to another really good largemouth catcher, the Ned Rig. The Ned Rig is so tried and true. It's just a great little finesse bait when those fish want something a little bit slower. This Ned Rig just flat out catches them, whether it's largemouth, smallmouth, or spots. They'll eat a Ned Rig. So this is a bait you can throw around all different types of cover. You can fish it slow, you can swim it, you can do a ton of different things with a little Ned Rig, and it catches fish. And this is kind of my bottom bait for largemouth bass. So if I need to slow down, if I need to really kind of pick apart an area, a little Ned Rig is the way to go for largemouth and smallmouth. Continuing that theme of low and slow is a jig. A jig is a tried and true largemouth bait. It will always be on the deck of my boat anytime I'm fishing largemouth. But what I like about a jig is I can fish it low, and I can fish it slow, and I can fish it along the bottom, but I can draw some really big bites from fish that may not want to eat anything else. Now you'll notice I have a green pumpkin jig with a black and blue trailer on there. I don't mind mixing up the colors. I actually think that those bass sometimes key in on baits that have a little bit different trailer than the body of the jig. And this is a Strike King Menace trailer. It's a little bit more subtle, and I think that's important, especially in this colder water. Largemouth tend to be a little bit more lethargic, and that Menace trailer just has enough kick where it'll draw you bites, but not be over the top like crazy action. I'm throwing it on a 7.3 Arc Invoker rod, and it's a mag medium heavy, so it's a little bit heavier duty rod. That's kind of what you want with a jig rod, to be able to drive that hook home. And then I lose BB1 Pro 7.3 to 1 or 7.1 to 1 reel. Faster reel, so when you set the hook on those fish, you can get them moving away from the cover. Because I'm going to put this in the gnarliest, nastiest stuff. Especially if I'm fishing wood, I want to get them out of it, moving away from it as quick and as fast as possible. My next bait, and my boy Nathan would be so proud of me, is a vibrating jig. This is actually a Z-Man Chatterbait Elite, I believe. And I have it paired up with a Yamamoto Seiko trailer. Now, the trailer is what you're really going to want to play with a lot this time of year. You're going to want to kind of switch up trailers and figure out what those fish want. Now, for me, a Seiko is a little bit better in warmer water conditions when those fish want something that's kicking and moving a ton. When you want that bait kind of cruising along at a decently fast pace, I might switch this out to like a craw trailer, like a Chigger Craw, or like a Menace Grub, or Rage Bug, or a Rage Craw. Basically something that imitates a craw that's a little bit beefier. And the reason I do that is so I can slow this bait down. Because one of my favorite ways to fish it, and my buddy Nathan showed me this, is basically just crawl it. Like, imagine if you were just crawling a jig along the bottom, you do the same thing with the chatterbait, and it catches a lot of big fish. This is a 3/8 ounce size. I like to fish a little bit lighter size, especially early season, because I'm not fishing that deep, and I just want to fish it really slow along the bottom, so that 3/8 ounce works perfectly. I'm fishing it on 15-pound Sunline, a Lew's 7.5 to 1 reel. Even though I'm crawling it, like as soon as I set the hook on that fish, I want to get him moving as fast as I can. And it's a Big Bear 7.3 3/4 heavy rod, which is basically like in between. It's basically a mag heavy rod, and then a moderate fast tip. So it's a softer tip, so when I set the hook on those fish, or when I'm crawling the bait and they eat it, gives them a little bit more time to get the bait in their mouth before I set the hook on them. Now, of all the baits, a crankbait for largemouth is where it gets the most complicated. Now, this is a very specialized crankbait. This is a 6 cent Swank. It's the L-bill, as you guys can tell, and this is one that I love to throw early season around real shallow cover, whether that's rock whether that's grass, whether that's wood. It kind of works around all three of them. A crankbait, the reason I say it's so unique is because you can fish a bunch of different kinds of crankbaits. So I like this when I'm fishing real shallow, like 3 foot or less, 5 foot or less, around shallow wood or shallow grass. But if you're gonna kind of be fishing around rock, you're gonna want a different crankbait, and let me show you that. My other 2 choices for a crankbait would be a lipless crankbait, especially if I'm fishing solely around grass. If I know those fish are burying in the grass, I'm gonna wanna fish a lipless crankbait, and this is actually a Bill Lewis rattle trap. It is a 1/2 ounce. It's basically like the tried and true lipless crankbait, and I'm going to be fishing this anytime I'm fishing like really just around grass. So if I know I'm fishing around grass, this is going to be the bait that I go to. So if I'm fishing around like a mixture of cover, shallow rock, shallow wood, shallow grass, I'm going to go to a square bill. Not just any square bill though. This is a flat-sided square bill, and the reason I like this is because it's got a really like finesse kind of action. It's a really tight wobble, and it triggers a lot of big bites. A lot of times when those guys are going on the bank with a square bill crankbait, they're missing fish because it's kind of hunting too hard. This bait here has those flat sides, so it's got a tighter wobble, tighter shimmy, and that flat, kind of longer bill is going to allow you to fish this in that 3 to 5, 3 to 6 foot zone and get a lot of big bites. This is one of my favorite colors. It's called Ballistic Sunfish, and it just flat out catches them early season when the water is a little bit muddy. So if the water's muddy, you're fishing mixed cover, this is the bait that I'm going to be throwing, especially for big largemouth up shallow when you're burning down the bank. So I hope that gives you guys a really good starting point on what baits to be choosing when you're fishing for early season largemouth and smallmouth bass. Again, I'm super excited to make this video for you, but please let me know if you think I missed anything. Did I miss any baits that you would have liked to see in my selection? Let me know in the comment section below. Guys, I'm going to be trying to go fishing and have a fishing video for you guys tomorrow. The weather's nasty. It's like 40 degrees and raining, but I'm going to try to get out to the lake if I can find one open. We're going to do some fishing, I promise. If nothing else, I'm fishing tomorrow, and we'll go catch some giant bass. But if you guys have any questions or comments, let me know down in the comment section below. As always, thank you for watching. Hit that like button, subscribe. Take care, tight lines. God bless. Pursue your passion.